Welcome back to Snetterton for the final race of the 2017 Radical SR1 Cup Championship. We caught up with a few of the front-running drivers before the final race of the year got underway.
Championship in the bag, third on the grid. Are you going to take it easy in this race?
Definitely not. I have nothing to lose, so I'm going to push as hard as I can, try and win it. It's going to be hard. Christian is quick. He's getting a new car, new tyres, and he's a very good race car driver. So I'm starting from third on the grid. If I get second, I'm happy. If I can get first, it's even better.
But you'll keep pushing.
I keep pushing. I have nothing to lose. I won the championship, so now it's all fun and games, and see how far I can push myself to try and win this.
So tell us how you're going to approach the start.
This one, definitely a bit more clutch control, a bit more revs. I'm also going to calm it down. I think I tried a bit too hard on the first one, and that probably caught me out with the clutch positioning. So this one, keep it calm. I've got experience of how it goes now, second race. Kind of know roughly what it's about and what to expect from the car. So yeah, I think we'll take it a bit easier and just get it off the line for this one.
Just push as hard as I can, see if we can bring home a win, but I'll be happy with anything. I'll be happy either way.
For the last race of the season, and Christian Jeffrey starts from pole position. Alongside is number 22 James Pinkerton, hoping for better fortunes. Row 2 of the grid is Jerome de Sadlier and Andy Chittenden, with Rob Courtnidge and Andrew Ritchie on row 3. Nigel Payne has Rob Ladbroke for company on row 4, and Peter Devlin is on his own on row number 5. The 5-second board is held aloft, and for the final time this year, the red lights come on the gantry for the start of a Radical SR1 Cup race. Christian Jeffrey on pole position. It's a better start there from James Pinkerton from the outside of the front row. The grid going nowhere is Andrew Ritchie, who was hoping for a good race because mathematically he could still overhaul James Pinkerton to second in the championship, but a stall on the grid, and James Pinkerton heading into the lead at the first corner probably now means that James Pinkerton is looking secure in second place overall in the championship, and he's got the jump on race 1 winner Christian Jeffries. They head into the braking area for Wilson for the first time. James Pinkerton from the outside of the front row of the grid taking up the early lead in this race. He will have also got the extra championship points as though he'd qualified on pole position, because Christian Jeffrey is not eligible for those. So James Pinkerton through the left-hander at Palmer. Christian Jeffrey in second place. It is going to be Jerome de Sadlier there in third place, and fourth place looks as though it's Andy Chittenden who's there in fourth position at this stage. The sunlight glinting off the cars as they head down and in towards the braking area for Agostini. And after Andy Chittenden, who's there in fourth place, it's Rob Courtnidge in fifth place, and the light green and black car is Nigel Payne, who completes the top 6. So they're all safely through the first third of a lap, with James Pinkerton, the car number 22, looking to try and make good his escape and also make amends for those problems that befell him in race 1 of the weekend, where he was on pole position, the lights went out, the chain snapped, and ultimately he scored 0 points, and that almost gifted Jerome de Sadlier the championship in race 1 of the weekend. So the third place car already the champion for this year. Lead 3 just breaking away at this stage, and James Pinkerton doing exactly what he wants to do, try and finish the season on a high point, forget about the problems of race number 1 and secure a victory in race 2 if he can. He works his way through the left-hander at Brundle, through the slightly tighter right-hander at Nelson. Christian Jeffrey having to stick his elbows out because Jerome de Sadlier is right with him, and Andy Chittenden has very close for company now, the number 56 car of Rob Courtnidge. So those two are still together. James Pinkerton, though, just starting to build the advantage. He saved the tyres in qualifying for the racing, didn't get to use them in race number 1, so he should have a fairly good set of Dunlop boots to use in this one. Look at this fight that's going on for 4th and 5th place. Andy Chittenden, number 48, under enormous pressure from Rob Courtnidge, who might pick up a bit of a toe this time as they head onto the centre straight. First lap completed, Pinkerton leads, Christian Jeffrey in second place, but under pressure from the champion who sits there in third place. Fourth place, Andy Chittenden has got Rob Courtnidge for company, and Rob Courtnidge having a quick look up the inside. Andy Chittenden wise to it this time though, because that's where Rob Courtnidge overtook him in race 1 of the weekend. So Andy Chittenden was not going to let it happen for a second time. He hangs on to 4th, but for how much longer? Because he's under enormous pressure. Equally as much the race 1 winner, Christian Jeffrey, cannot shake away the champion for this year, Jerome de Sadlier, the Swiss driver, absolutely in his Dunlop wheel tracks as they carve their way through the left-hander at Palmer and then propel themselves down the short straight that brings them into the heavy braking area for the left-hand hairpin at Agostini. Ideal conditions here at Snetterton, and well, Jerome de Sadlier looking to try and work his magic if he can. At the moment, he sits behind the new Generation 2 Radical SR1 in the hands of the man from the Caribbean, as they then just turn their way through the left-hander at Hamilton. All of the time, it's just allowing race leader James Pinkerton to build an advantage. It's not coming out by much, just a few feet a lap, but it's going the right way as far as the race leader is concerned, largely because these two cars in second and third place are just slowing it up just enough, and this time Christian Jeffrey runs wide coming out of Williams. That slows his momentum all the way down the Bentley Straight, and surely he's going to get his pocket picked here. Yet Jerome de Sadlier goes through and up into second place, and the race one winner with the slightest of mistakes drops down into third position, and that is all you need in one of these cars because they're all absolutely identical. Very sideways this time coming out of Nelson is Jerome de Sadlier, having just taken up second position. Got a little bit sideways there as he applied the power a little bit too much, had to correct it with a handful of opposite lock, but he's gathered up the moment, hasn't lost a great deal of time. Again, you can see the tail end of the car moving around. We did hear from Jerome after qualifying that even his set of race tyres had still had a bit of use, and maybe it's those tyres now that towards the end of the season, because you are limited to the amount of tyres you can use over the course of a season in Radical SR1 Cup to keep the costs down and keep it a level playing field. Maybe those tyres are just starting to feel it now as we head towards the final race of the season. Leading three having got away, Andy Chittenden is still under pressure from Rob Courtnidge for what is fourth and fifth place. Nigel Payne is a little bit further back, and I think he's got the recovering car of Andrew Ritchie starting to close in on him. The fourth and fifth place battle pretty much rooted together as they head onto the brakes and turn their way in towards the right-hander at Wilson. You can see just how fantastic the conditions are here. We're in late August, but beautiful sunshine in Norfolk, and well, Andy Chittenden and Rob Courtnidge will have other things to think about other than the weather as they turn their way round through Palmer. They've still got to try and sort out who's going to finish fourth and who's going to finish fifth in this race. Trio already safely heading into and out of Agostini, and now that he's up into second place, Jerome de Sadlier, what can he do about catching the driver who was his main championship rival, James Pinkerton? At the moment, since taking up second place, he's just pulled away a shade over Christian Jeffrey, but isn't particularly closing up onto the coattails of the race leader. Fourth and fifth place still very busy though. Andy Chittenden still under pressure from Rob Courtnidge. There's also another good fight going on just further back from them as well, which is Nigel Payne, who is coming under pressure from the recovering Andrew Ritchie, who stalled when the lights went out and is now starting to pick people off as race wears on. Onto the Bentley Straight goes the fourth and fifth place battle, with now James Pinkerton. You can see the gap that exists between himself and Jerome de Sadlier, with Christian Jeffrey there in third place. Fourth place is still Andy Chittenden. Rob Courtnidge picking up a little bit of a toe, but not enough so as to really close the gap as they head down towards the bottom section of the Bentley Straight. So the top five still remaining exactly as they were, but for Rob Courtnidge, he is absolutely in a position. Any slip up at all from Andy Chittenden, and the number 56 car is there and is ready to pounce at this stage. Rob Courtnidge, who we have seen finish on the podium once so far this year, that was at Donington Park at the previous race meeting. As things stand, he's down in fifth place and well, a long way adrift of a podium position at this stage, but desperate to try and work his way through and ahead of Andy Chittenden, and this time heading out of Murray's. Looks as though he's got a good run on the car this time. We saw him do a great overtake in race one on the run towards Ritchie's corner, and Andy Chittenden will be watching his mirrors. He'll need to try and potentially move over to take a defensive line in towards Ritchie's. The two of them absolutely together through the right-hander. Chittenden still hanging on to fourth place. Rob Courtnidge, despite his very best efforts, still remains there in fifth place. And is he going to be close enough to have a look at the inside coming into Wilson? No, he's just too far away. Closed the gap on the brakes, but again, he's not close enough so as to try and squeeze his way through and up the inside. James Pinkerton still leading, still with Jerome de Sadlier in second place, and Christian Jeffrey just starting to fall away a shade more now in third place. Then that gap back towards this squabbling pair, which is Andy Chittenden still under pressure from Rob Courtnidge, who again, is he going to have a look this time? No, closing again on the brakes, and Rob Courtnidge almost pushing Andy Chittenden around the corner. They're so close to each other. Great driving between the pair of them. And well, who is going to come out in fourth and who's going to come out in fifth at the end of this one is still very much up for dispute. Running a little bit wide, missing the apex at the left-hander at Hamilton was Rob Courtnidge. That cost him another car length to Andy Chittenden there, and gathers up what was just a very small moment. Just didn't quite nail the apex, the car in fifth place. And now he's got to try and work his magic round through Williams and close up on the straight again as they head down towards the braking area for Brundle and Nelson, which is where the lead trio are already negotiating. Here comes that fourth and fifth place battle. Rob Courtnidge enjoying the advantage of the hole in the air that's being made by Andy Chittenden. Closes a little bit again towards the end of the straight, but just simply isn't close enough as they head in towards Brundle and Nelson. So it's still Andy Chittenden in fourth place. Still the charging Rob Courtnidge there in fifth position. And these two needn't worry too much about who's there in sixth at the moment, because Nigel Payne and Andrew Ritchie are still slowing each other up as they squabble over what will be the final place inside the top six. So round through Coram, in towards the braking area for the left-hander at Murray's. You can see just how close it is and the pressure that Andy Chittenden is continually under from Rob Courtnidge, who again gets a good run this time coming onto the centre straight. And there's problems for Andy Chittenden. He holds his hand aloft as he comes over the start-finish line, and Rob Courtnidge is able to squeeze his way through, and Andy Chittenden is slowing coming up the centre straight, and surely is going to be destined for retirement. His best bet will be to pull the car off to the left-hand side, which is what he's doing. Sensible driving by Andy Chittenden immediately after the pit wall, and number 48 car, rather frustratingly for him, heads into retirement. So that is not the best way for Andy Chittenden to end his 2017 SR1 Cup season with a retirement. As for second and third place, well, Christian Jeffrey a few moments ago was falling away from Jerome de Sadlier. Well, maybe he's just taken a breather. Maybe he's allowed the car to come back to him. The tyres have cooled off a little bit. Maybe the pressures have dropped. Perhaps now in what are still warm conditions, the engine now has just cooled down a bit, and now it looks as though the man from the Caribbean is starting to charge back up onto the coattails of the Swiss driver, who was a little bit sideways that time coming round through Oggy's corner, and that pushed him wide on the exit of the corner, and Christian Jeffrey is able to sneak up the inside when they get towards Williams' corner. This was where Christian Jeffrey made the mistake earlier on, and this time he doesn't run wide coming out of Williams, so he's back up into second place, and that small mistake from Jerome de Sadlier cost him the position. He dropped from second down to third in a very similar manner to Christian Jeffrey's small mistake, costing him the similar position. And now de Sadlier's fighting back. He's got the inside line for Brundle, and that would give him the outside line for Nelson, but he's already through, so great driving from this pair. Small mistake from Jerome de Sadlier, but he's corrected it, and by the end of the lap he's back up into second once more. All of this squabbling though is just allowing our race leader James Pinkerton to begin to pull away. Jerome de Sadlier looking as though he's driving on the very ragged edge here. I suspect those tyres have probably done enough racing over the course of this season. You can see the tail end of the car is very loose indeed. Gets a little bit sideways again coming out of Murray's corner. That is going to allow Christian Jeffrey to try and close in as they head onto the centre straight. Jerome de Sadlier squeezing him but fairly as they come onto the straight, so Christian Jeffrey sits behind. That's another lap chalked into the book as they now head on to the last lap of the racing season, and Jerome de Sadlier is really going to have to stick his elbows out here if he wants to hang on for second place. He suggested that he was not going to give up trying. Whilst he was already the champion coming into this race, he ideally wanted a win. Well, for the moment he's got his hands full just hanging on to second place, because race 1 winner Christian Jeffrey is almost pushing him around the corner. The Gen 1 car ahead of the newer shaped Generation 2 car that was launched at Rockingham earlier on this season, and as they then turn their way through the left-hander at Palmer for the final time, James Pinkerton is now a long way up the road in the lead of the race, and still weaving from side to side is Jerome de Sadlier, trying to make it as difficult as he can for Christian Jeffrey, who is not in this for championship points. He's just a guest driver this weekend, but is making a real impact at the wheel of that new car. So pretty much together, up towards Hamilton again they'll go. Jerome de Sadlier is going to have to really drive the wheels off this car. You can see the car sliding wide almost as he turned his way through Hamilton. Every time the car looks as though it's on the ragged edge, but I'm sure it's beautifully in control as far as the Swiss driver is concerned. And Christian Jeffrey is going to have, at least a couple more rolls of the dice. One of them will be down the Bentley straight and in towards the braking area for Brundle and Nelson. The other one could be at Murray's, or potentially the charge to the line that might sort this one out. James Pinkerton is away and gone in the lead of the race, but who's going to finish second in the final championship race for the 2017 season for the Radical SR1 Cup? It is still Jerome de Sadlier, the champion for this year. Christian Jeffrey's had a spin. He's lost the tail end of the car heading through Brundle and Nelson. So hard was he trying, and well, that has now done it. He will recover and still hang on to third place, but that small mistake, so hard was he trying on the very ragged edge, has dropped him a long way away now after the spin from that man there, Jerome de Sadlier, who stitched up the championship earlier on in the day, and he's going to come through and finish second in the final race of the season. The final race which is won by James Pinkerton, so he will finish as the runner-up in the 2017 championship standings. It is the champion, Jerome de Sadlier, that comes through and finishes in second place. But what a race and what a battle he was having with Christian Jeffrey, who finished in third place, and I'm sure will be very pleased indeed with a couple of solid performances in his debut in the SR1 Cup Championship. Fourth place will go the way of the car that's just coming over the start-finish line now. That's Rob Courtnidge, who finishes in fourth position. But for James Pinkerton, the day might not have started the way he wanted, with a retirement from pole position and ultimately losing out on the chance to battle for the championship. But it's finished in the best possible fashion. He claims a win from Jerome de Sadlier in second place and Christian Jeffrey in third. Rob Courtnidge was fourth, ahead of Andrew Ritchie in fifth. Nigel Payne, Rob Ladbrook and Peter Devlin complete the top 8 for the final race of the 2017 season. Happy looking drivers pulling in towards the Parc Ferme area here at Snetterton, as Jerome de Sadlier takes a well-earned drink by the look of things after a pretty frantic race. Others discussing the finer points of the race as well, and a handshake from the champion to the championship runner-up James Pinkerton.
I've had such a good season. Race one's just one of those things that's happened, so luckily I got a really good run, just pushed as hard as I could, and yeah, really happy.
So the drivers heading up onto the podium for the final time this season. Christian Jeffrey, Jerome de Sadlier and James Pinkerton claims the last win on what was a superb 2017 championship season.
Listen, it's been awesome. It's a super great learning curve. Enjoyed it. Ready to try and move up now. It wasn't easy. I think, I cruised through the first half of the season. The second half, James became much quicker. Gave me a run for my money, but yeah, it was good in the end.
So some great scenes on the podium for the final time in 2017 in the Radical SR1 Cup. We've seen great racing, we've seen the launch of the new Gen 2 car, and we've got some exciting things to come in 2018 as well. Join us for more next year.